Hey, how's it going, folks? Welcome to the Chapter 10 analysis of Dr. Zhivago. This will be going out as usual on YouTube and as a podcast, and the essay itself will be published over at camscampbellreads.substack.com. So, let's get into it. In this chapter, Yury and Lara all but disappear. The lens zooms out to give us a picture of Siberia during the Civil War, with the Whites under Admiral Kolchak in the ascendancy and pockets of Bolshevik resistance holding secret meetings and forming partisan groups in the forest. Yury is mentioned only in passing as an émigré doctor from Moscow in a nearby village, heard of but never seen. The scene is set during Holy Week, a time of resurrection set against a war that is destroying the villagers' way of life. A country busy killing off the flower of its own manhood. We're travelling along the oldest highway in Siberia. The region is now governed by Admiral Kolchak, Supreme Commander of the Whites. Who was he? Alexander Kolchak served in the Imperial Russian Navy and fought in the disastrous Russo-Japanese War of 1904-05, during which he was taken prisoner. In November 1918, he was appointed Supreme Ruler after the collapse of the Directory, a 5-member executive body of the Constituent Assembly in Omsk, which had lasted only 8 weeks. Interestingly, the Directory's base was in a railway carriage near Omsk, which may perhaps have inspired Strelnikov's location in Chapter 7. Kolchak led the counter-revolution for the next 14 months before handing over to General Anton Denikin in January 1920. It's Holy Week. The thaw is coming. The road passes the Holy Cross Monastery, where a recruitment poster for the Whites is pinned by order of Kolchak. There's a soft rain that soaks everything and washes away the remaining snow. Pasternak gives a vivid description of the approaching spring. The grocer's wife, Galuzina, leaves the Matins service in the church because she's feeling faint. She's worried that her son will be called up. Quote, "Another's soul is a dark pool," as the saying goes. Pevear and Volokhonsky render that as, "There's no looking into another's heart." The original reads, "Chuzhaya dusha patyomki." Galuzina's husband is out delivering a patriotic speech to the new recruits instead of looking after their son, and Galuzina is distraught. What had caused all this misery? Was it the revolution? Oh, no. It was the war. The war had killed off the flower of Russia's manhood, and now there was nothing but rotten, good-for-nothing rubbish left. Pasternak's opening the chapter at Matins in Holy Week is more than seasonal scene setting. For provincial Russia, the church calendar was the very frame of life. As Orlando Figes notes, the villager thought of himself first as Orthodox and only afterwards, if at all, as Russian. Quote, "We are Orthodox and we are from here." End quote. Galuzina, slipping faint from the service, sick with worry over her conscripted son, belongs wholly to that world. Her faith and her dread of the war are cut from the same cloth. Galuzina thinks on the good old days before the revolution and the war changed everything. She thinks about the Jewish families who have set up businesses in the old grey house. Her husband was wrong to hate the Jews so much. The passage is notable given Pasternak's own Jewish background. She ponders education, the difference between town and village. It's the country people that know how to live. She goes home and thinks about the men like Tverzin and Antipov out there lording it up, former political exiles from the capitals. I suppose Yury, Zhivago and Lara would be included in these thoughts if she'd known them, although they were living quietly and were not lording it up. Galuzina has some old shoulder pain that flares up. Her ward Ksyusha offers some sympathy. Ksyusha suggests the Hungarian doctor. Seemingly everyone has left. There's not a doctor to be had, although they've heard that there's a famous doctor from Moscow in Uryatin. Lidachka, the representative of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, is making a speech about the militarist regime in Siberia. It's at an illegal meeting being held in the middle of a shed in the photographer's yard. Their goal is, quote, to overthrow the hateful autocracy of admirals and hetmans and to establish the power of the peasants and soldiers' Soviets. There are 12 to 15 people in the room, including 4 guests of honour, old workers and veterans of the 1905 revolution. Tverzin is one and Tipov is another. Lidachka was touring Siberia on a military mission from the Central Committee. Also present is Liberius, Mykolitsyn's son, and the leader of the Forest Brotherhood, the partisan group that has taken Yury. The speaker, Lidachka, is Kostoyed Amursky, a formal social revolutionary, or SR. Lidachka is his code name. We first met him in Chapter 7 when he was arguing against the Bolsheviks with Yury on the train while they enjoyed a roasted hare together. The SRs were now outlawed and Kostoyed has come over to the Communist Party. He's chosen for this mission because of his background in revolutionary activity and his knowledge of the peasantry in the region. Liberius finds Lidachka's speech to be amateurish. The meeting ends after some unresolved arguments. In the village of Kucheny Posad, a farewell dinner is being held for Kolchak's conscripts. Vlas Galuzin is there toasting the conscripts for victory against the Bolsheviks. His son Terenti is one of the conscripts. He and his friend Goshka have an interesting conversation. The original texts include some mild swearing, as a boy's conversation probably would. Hayward and Harari translate it as, I'll join the anarchists, I'll ... your mother if I don't. Pevear and Volokhonsky render it as, I'll damn well sign up with the anarchists. The original reads, Ja, mać twayu, v anarchisty zapishus. So that mać twayu literally means your mother, but there's no verb there, the verb is implied. The sound of an explosion interrupts Galuzin's toast. The village hall in the neighbouring village of Mali Yermolai is on fire. Medical checks of conscripts were being carried out in that village. A colonel rides over from Mali Yermolai and starts a house-to-house search in Kucheny to look for the perpetrator. Terenti and Goshka sneak off to hide. Not that they've done anything wrong, but just to keep out of the way. They get the story of what had happened. Sanfat Pafnutkin had caused a fray at the medical centre after refusing to undress for his medical. Colonel Stressa is now looking for him and his accomplices, and it turns out for Terenti Galuzin as well. The colonel suspects that his father has been involved in clandestine meetings of rebels, which of course he has. The chapter ends with Terenti and Goshka's decision to run and join the Forest Brotherhood until things die down. So there we go, a short chapter this week, and quite a different one given that it doesn't have the main characters in it. So it's just given us an idea of life in Siberia under the Civil War. Must have been pretty grim, I have to say. It reminds me a little bit of The White Guard by Bulgakov, which we read on the channel a couple of months ago. That covers the same period of time, and it gives us a different glimpse into the Civil War from the point of view of the Whites in Kiev. So it's an interesting juxtaposition, I think, this book and that book, reading them together, given that they were written around about the same time and they cover the same period of history. It's fascinating stuff. If you want to read more about the actual history of what went down, including Kolchak and the Whites and the Czech Legion, which we covered in the last essay, look at A People's Tragedy by Orlando Figes. It's a fantastic book, a book to be read more than once. Eminently readable, not dry in the way that you might expect a Soviet history book or a Russian history book to be. It's very, very readable, and I highly, highly recommend it. I refer to it constantly when I'm writing these essays, and indeed I looked it up to find out about Kolchak to make sure that I was giving you the correct information. So, there we go. Chapter 10. I'll catch you all next week for Chapter 11. Don't forget, if you want to see the images that go along with this podcast, if you're listening to it that way, then head on over to the Substack, camscampbellreads.substack.com, where you can see the images that I include. And I'll also have them in the video, which, if you're watching, you'll already know. So, thanks for your company today. See you next week.